first off, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessors, and transmitting masters, and everyone here today to have this opportunity to continue talking about the Maitreya Disaster Rescue Sutra. So everyone can see the screen, right? The last time we left off, well, we're now on to up to the third line from the top. Okay, so that's where we'll continue. Let's see. All right, let's go. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Okay, so so here, yeah, this is where we have an alternate. This is like one of the major differences here. Although in terms of meaning, it's either, I mean, the other alternate is also acceptable. Actually, that's the one that I think in our temple that we use. So, but okay, so but Sanguan Dadi, that's the three ministers of heaven, earth, and water. So that's, if you remember, that was they're three of the patriarchs of Tao in the Green Era, right? It's the sage emperors Yao, Sun, and Yu. Okay, and then Cibei, of course, mercifully. Zhu. Okay, so if it's this one up here, Zhu, then that means to register or to enroll, right? So when we receive the Tao, our name is registered in heaven. Okay, so in the alternate reading would be Sanguan Sube Dadi Zu. Okay, so this is kind of the alternate would be it's kind of like splitting the name, if you will. So Sanguan and then Dadi is kind of split up here, but I mean it's still acceptable to do that. In Chinese, it's like very flexible, if you will, the language, that you can kind of, sometimes you can like change the order of the words and it still means the same thing. But Sanguan, okay, so, but the important difference here is the Zu, the last character there, Zu meaning to register and enroll, but then Zu is kind of to be in charge. So depending on how you want to interpret this, you know, it could mean the same thing. I mean, they are in charge of the, you know, when we receive the Tao, burning the document, and they receive it in heaven. Okay, so, but there was another explanation that I heard that, you know, that person, I don't know, is a lecturer or a transmitter, I'm not sure, but says, well, he didn't believe that it could be this other alternate one, because the way he interpreted it is saying that, oh, you know, is that the three ministers, great ministers, are in charge of forgiving the sins, which, well, actually, I have heard other explanation that says they can, but but anyways, so. But anyway, so either is okay. All right, Sezui is to pardon or forgive sins, and then Sancao are the three realms: the human realm, the celestial heavens, and the underworld. Okay, and Ju means to save or rescue, and Zongsen, of course, sentient beings. Right. So, so this and then the other alternate we see is. Sezui Sancao, okay, so the three realms, right? Here it says, the other one says, Sezui Tiancao, Juzhongsen. This one doesn't make as much sense when basically, yeah, this one doesn't make as much sense, depending on how you parse this line, these words here, because, you know, if you say Sezui is to pardon the sins of Tiancao, then that's just like the heavens, so that doesn't quite make sense. You know, so through the normal way that you would parse this, it would not make sense. So that one is probably not a correct one. Okay. Okay. So Let's see here. Right. So basically, after these 3 sage emperors, right, in the Green Era, they fulfilled their vows in the world. They attained down, and so now they hold that position of the 3 great ministers in heaven. Okay. So again, when we receive the Tao, it's the dragon scroll. We call it the dragon document or dragon scroll document. That's the one that gets burned at the altar, right? It has our name on it, our merit fee, and who our introducing guarantors are. Okay, so you can say burning the document kind of sends you can say like a virtual copy, okay, of the document to heaven, where it's received by the 3 great ministers. Then, because they are kind of keeping the books, if you will, the holy book of life. Okay, so that's where they register our name in the holy book of life, and also they dispatch, the message, if you will, to the underworld, where our names are removed from the book of death. Okay, that's being kept in the underworld, right? So that's what basically this is like the minimum, the basic requirement, or the necessary condition for us to transcend this life and death. Because normal people, they would just report to the underworld because their name's in the book of death, and then they would be judged there as to where, if they need to suffer in the underworld for a while to be punished, and then where to go next. So for cultivators, people receive the Tao, cultivate, then they report to heaven. Okay, so it doesn't mean that we automatically gain entry into heaven proper. We have to go through some tests or checkpoints too as well, okay, to see if we actually qualify. Okay, but okay. So, anyways, there was early on in this sutra there was a mention of this Hunyan Gu Ce, which it's this book that records our achievements, virtues, merits, and demerits. Okay, so that's like our life record in there, that records every, obviously whatever, only the things that are relevant to whether we can get into heaven or not. So those are our achievements, in terms of virtues, merits, and demerits, right? And then this will also determine our peerage or rank, if you will, in heaven. Okay, so if we don't have many achievements, then we won't have any kind of a rank, or and we'll just be, we'll still be basically cultivating there to try to improve or elevate ourselves. All right. Okay, and then also when we see Tao, 7 generations of our ancestors, each get a white lotus in the, if they're still in the underworld, they get a white lotus. Okay, this white lotus allows them to listen to Siddhigarbha Buddha. Okay, so remember, Siddhigarbha Buddha, he is the Buddha in the underworld, right? That's his vow. Now, his vow is that he will remain, he will not, technically he will not become a Buddha until the underworld is empty of souls. Okay, so that's that could take forever. But he's there, he's speaking the Dharma, teaching the souls that are there, or the ones who are privileged enough, basically if their descendants have received the Tao, then they have that privilege or the right to listen to the Dharma. Now, there are 3, and they don't have to suffer. So this is why receiving Tao is such a big deal. It's not just going to help us in the future to transcend this life and death. Our ancestors who may be in the underworld, they don't have to suffer anymore. Okay, while we're still alive. Now, okay, so that's definitely a big deal, and then they can listen to the Dharma, right? So, but there are 3 different levels for these ancestors who've the descendants have received the Tao. So the lowest level is for the ancestors whose descendants they've received the Tao, but are not involved in any Tao affairs or even listening to classes, okay? So, you know, in this case, right, these ancestors, they have to stand, okay? They don't have any chairs, okay? So they have to stand and listen to the Dharma. Now, for the descendants who received the Tao and attended at least a year and a half of temple classes, their ancestors are then upgraded to the second level, right? And they can sit and listen to the Dharma. Okay. Yeah, and then so the descendants, basically, in this case, you know, they should progress in Tao learning and cultivation, you know, for their ancestors to remain at this level or to, you know, to go up to the next level. Okay, so then the ancestors, you know, for them to reach the highest level, the third level, the descendants must also take the vegetarian or vegan vow and become a temple host, either, I guess, of a public temple or establish a home temple, or, you know, become like a lecturer and help in the Tao affairs. Okay, so this is obviously, you know, this is, the person has to be a lot more involved, and they have to progress a lot more in the Tao cultivation and the practice and the propagation of the Tao. And then so in this instance, the ancestors will, well, assuming that the descendant, they attain Tao. In other words, they fulfill their vows with having sufficient virtues and merits to be maybe conferred having a peerage, you know, some rank in heaven, then the ancestors will also transcend the cycle of life and death. So even though the ancestors are there in the underworld, but when this descendant is able to return to heaven, having enough, you know, virtues and merits, and perhaps it's not clear whether they have to have some kind of peerage or some rank, then the ancestors also can return to heaven. Okay, so that's great. I mean, that's ideal, right? So that's why we should all try to, because in the other two instances, in the lower two classes or levels for the ancestors, there's no guarantee that the ancestors will be able to return to heaven. I mean, in the first instance where, you know, the person receives the Tao and doesn't really, maybe doesn't go back to temple or whatever, they just, you never see them again, and they're not really cultivating. So, basically, you know, there's no guarantee that they will also go to heaven. Okay, so let alone their ancestors, right? So that would be, it would be a waste, really a shame that to not receive the Tao and then try to keep improving and progressing. Okay. All right. Then, okay, so the second half of this line here refers to the forgiving of the sins of those in the three realms. So remember the celestial heavens, the devas, basically, humans and spirits in the underworld. Now, it is because of our sins are forgiven that we are able to receive Tao, cultivate, and return to heaven. Okay, so normally sins are other offenses. Okay, so yeah, I mean, sins, they may not necessarily involve other people. Okay, so in other words, you know, when we commit a sin, it may not necessarily create karma with others. Okay, but the sin, if we do have sins, then potentially we have to suffer, you know, essentially kind of be punished in the underworld for those sins. Okay. Now, in the case of our ancestors, their sins are forgiven, so they no longer have to suffer and can listen to the Dharma in the underworld. All right. So obviously this is, you know, that's why we say when we receive the Tao, our ancestors really, they benefit. And in fact, they benefit a lot. Okay. So, now, if and when we do return to heaven, the three great ministers judge each person according to their virtues, merits, and demerits. However, just because our sins are forgiven does not mean we can automatically return to heaven or enter the gates of heaven, if you will. Okay, if our sin involves other sentient beings, where we have incurred a karmic debt, then we will have to pay off that debt. Unless we have sufficient merits and we sincerely repent and the karmic debt collector is satisfied. Okay, so there's certain conditions here. If we have sufficient merits, that's why the Buddha's holy teacher keeps tell us that, hey, anytime we have problems, whatever, or, to prevent these karmic problems from coming up, that we have to perform merits. I mean, one thing is the internal side is the virtues, nurture our virtues, but externally we have to perform merits to be able to offset, and try to satisfy those debt collectors who those spirits who want to get payback. Maybe they'll accept the merit instead, right? Instead of causing us suffering. Okay. So that's why we can then transcend life and death and return to heaven, but still we have to pay off our karmic debts, right? So now humans can receive the Tao, but also devas and spirits of the underworld, right? So they have to be uplifted. Uplifting, well, except for the case of, right, where the descendant is really, kind of progressed in the Tao at a higher level. They're vegan, they've taken a vegan vow, and they're temple host or lecturer, and involved in the Tao matters. Okay, so automatically their ancestors should be able to return to heaven when they return. But of course, there's a wait there, there's a time there. But you can also uplift them right away if that's possible too. Although now I think it's less. I think holy teacher is kind of discouraging doing that because, okay. So uplifting by humans means that people who do not do the uplifting, right? They have to provide the merit fee, which is a lot more than the normal merit fee, right? So normally we say $10 or $20. This is at least 10. I don't know. It's more than 10 or 20 times more, I think. But anyways, it depends. And also take on the karmic debts of the deceased. Okay, so that's something that we have to be. This is one of the reasons why I guess not that many people do the uplifting, because we don't know what kind of karmic debts are. Well, in this case, we would only be, excuse me, uplifting perhaps our parents, but we don't know what kind of karmic debts they have. So it might be a lot, and we might not have enough merits to be able to take on those karmic debts. Okay, so and then what will happen then is that the person doing the uplifting, something bad will happen to them because of the karma. All right. Okay, so so we've talked about a few examples of uplifting a few weeks ago. Now, except for the patriarchs, right, the uplifter must have the affinity with the deceased. So practically speaking, right, for most of us, it's basically our parents that we can do. Okay, so, but there might be some exceptional cases. There is this exceptional case. There is this person in Japan. Okay, so this person, he didn't really. He wasn't even like a lecturer, or I'm not sure. Initially, he wasn't like a temple host even. Okay, but he received the Tao, and he thought it was really good. But he couldn't really speak, talk about the principles and all that stuff. But all he would do is go out into his village and knock on doors, and if people answered, and he would say, hey, this Tao is very good. Do you want to come to our temple? Obviously, not everyone. Some people, they slammed the door on him, or even there are cases where police were called to tell him that he's like harassing them or something. But anyways, he persisted no matter what. He would keep knocking on doors, and then when he's like knocked on all the doors in the village. He goes to the next, he went to another village. Okay, so he did this, and I forget how many doors. It's like tens of thousands, okay, of homes that he went to, and maybe even more than that, but
200,000 people.
Oh, 200,000, yeah. So that's incredible amount. I mean, you can see what that sincerity and that effort that he put in. Okay, so persistence. And so, you know, and actually as a result of that, I mean, obviously maybe, I don't know, 99% of the people, you know, they refuse or whatever, but the few that did, and there were actually a lot, who did receive the Tao, and actually many of them also became temple hosts, set up home temples, or maybe even public temples. But the story about the uplifting is that then one day Holy Teacher channeled and said that, oh, he can now uplift an ancestor from, I don't know, it was like 300 years ago or something, I don't know. But yeah, that's, you know, for most people, we can't do that. I mean, but I guess he had so much merit, you know, enough merit to be able to do that. And, you know, so that's kind of a special case. But, okay. So we must have sufficient merits and virtues ourselves to be able to uplift someone. Okay. Transmitting masters have uplifted not just their parents, but also grandparents, maybe other, you know, family members. Today, it's not as easy to uplift someone. Holy Teacher also said that we should just be concentrating on cultivating our virtues and performing merits, you know, whether that's donating money, time and effort, or ferrying people, rather than focusing on just getting merits in order to uplift. So it's not like a numbers game, okay? So we shouldn't just be trying to accumulate merits as it's like a, you know, a game where you're trying to get a high score. It's not like that, okay? Then that kind of cheapens the merit. Then it's not real true merit. Okay. Now, because to whatever degree we cultivate and perform merits, our ancestors will benefit accordingly. Like we, you know, talked about just before about the three, you can say the three levels of the ancestors in the underworld. Okay. So the more that we progress in learning, cultivating, practicing, and propagating Tao, our ancestors will also rise in rank, okay, if you will, right? So when they're at the third and highest rank, then they are eligible to return to heaven when we do, assuming that we do, okay? So, all right, so yeah, I think Holy Teacher, you know, doesn't want people to develop an attachment to merits, right? As they might want when seeking merits for the purpose of uplifting. Because then, you know, they could just end up cultivating superficially, okay, just on the surface only, and not getting any true merits at all, right? If you remember Emperor Liang Wudi, right, he built many shrines and monasteries and even supported the Sangha, the monks. But what did Bodhidharma tell him when he asked how much merit he had? You know, Bodhidharma said he had no merits. Okay, so it's not what's on the outside, okay? It also depends on what's on the inside that matters in our heart and mind. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's go on to the next slide here. Okay. So the next line says, 救苦天尊来救世，清点无不戒力神. Okay. So 救苦天尊, that's let's see. Yeah, this can refer to to Sangtang, who's also the sage emperor, right? He's the 11th patriarch of Tao. So he came after Yao Sun Yu. Okay, there's one more in between, but he came after that. But actually there are many of these Juku Tianzun. Okay, so including Maitreya. Okay, and all other angels, deities, and bodhisattvas who are helping, okay, with this mission. Right? Okay, but all right. So, anyways, Lai means to come. 救世 is to save the world. Okay, 清点. Okay, so there's, you know, two words here, but together, you know, saying personally select. So who's personally selecting? It's Maitreya because he's in charge now. Okay, Wenbu is like, well, Wen is like cult, you know, it's like culture or cultured, whatever. And then Bu is like the department or class. So I call this the cultured class. This is referring to a certain group of, you can say deities, okay? Deities, maybe angels, deities, that kind of thing, okay? And then Jie Di Sen, okay, so these are the protection deities, like guardian angels, right? So, so basically, right. So Maitreya, he holds the heavenly post, right? So he's like the big Buddha, he's the Buddha in charge of this white era. And he's also in charge of the whole mission, right? Of this universal salvation, the 3 realms. And so he's personally selecting other deities or whoever to help, in this white era mission, right? They help support the Tao support and protect Tao affairs and the cultivators. There are 2 major groups, I guess, of these immortals, right? One is the Wenbu, you can say the cultured class, and then another is like the Wubu, which is kind of like the more, like a warrior, warrior class, okay? So those are like the soldiers and they will fight like the evil, the demons and the evil spirits. But anyways, all right, so most are probably in this cultured class, but, some are in the warrior class. These are, in terms of the people who are in this world, though, you can say they apply, if they're incarnated in the world, right? These are people who can go out and pioneer a big Tao field, for example, like in the warrior class. So they can really just go out there and charge and kind of open up an entire big field for the Tao. In the spiritual realm, they are the guardian angels, protectors of the Dharma, and cultivators. Okay, so like, for example, Guansin Di Jing, okay, so he's the general, right, the red-faced general that you see, where a lot of the, like, restaurants or businesses, Chinese business, they worship, they have his, statue there and they worship him, okay, so he enforces the Dharma law, okay, so he can slay evil spirits, but he cannot do anything about to the karmic debt collectors. Okay, so the karmic debt collectors, even though they're like causing us harm, if you will, suffering, that kind of stuff, but he can't do anything to them because they have a right, they have a mandate actually to be able to collect their debts. Okay, so that's something that we have to realize that, if karma comes to us and we're suffering from it, and we ask the Buddhists for help, the Buddhists can't do anything about it, really. I mean, that's why the Buddhists just tell us that we have to accumulate merits, and we have to nurture our virtues, and repent, and be grateful, okay? That's the only way to kind of, where our holy teacher can then try to negotiate with these karmic debt collectors, say, well, this person is very sincere, and he's cultivating, and he's trying his best to get, and I will, basically our holy teacher becomes the guarantor, okay, says, well, he's going to vouch for us, say that, that we're going to actually, perform, do what we need to do, right, to get those merits, so that those karmic debt collectors will then kind of let us go. But, so unfortunately, a lot of people, they maybe holy teacher, has tried to help us, but then, these people, they just don't even try to help themselves, really. So, and it's unfortunate. Then they have to suffer, okay, as a result. Okay. All right. So then the next, let's see, next line. The 八大金刚来护法, and then 四位菩萨救众生. Okay, so 八大金刚, right? That's the 8 great deities or guardians who protect the Dharma. Okay. And then 来, okay, to come, and then 护法 is to protect, you could say protect the Dharma, okay. And then 四位菩萨 are the 4 great bodhisattvas, or known as mahasattvas. Okay, those are great bodhisattvas. And I'll talk about who these are. and then Ju is to save or rescue, and then Zongsen is sentient beings. Okay. All right. So, basically, the Bada Jinggang, right, are the 8 deities or guardians protect Dharma. According to one explanation, they are the Hua Sen or the Nirmanakaya of 8 Mahasattvas or the great Bodhisattvas. In other words, so these Bodhisattvas and Buddhas and they can transform. Okay, so this is the Nirmanakaya is the transformation body of a Buddha, for example, of an enlightened being. Okay, so they are able to, you can say, they can have, infinite, infinite number of different transformations. All right, and they can become someone. They can become a person. They can become an animal. They can become a spirit. They can become any of these things. If it suits the purpose of what they're trying to do, they're trying to save sentient beings, they can do that. Okay. So one of their duties is to make sure that people receiving Tao have the affinity or basic qualifications to do so. So, if they do not, then these 8 guardians will prevent the person from receiving the Tao. Okay, so these 8 guardians, when it's time, when you have a Tao receiving ceremony, they're there to make sure that the person walking in and going to receive the Tao is, you can say, meets the basic minimum qualification to be able to receive the Tao. Okay, so if they don't, then something will happen. Basically, the person might just change their mind, or something, they get a headache, something happens, and they just don't go through with it. All right. Okay, so now we've spoken about this earlier, right? When we encountered that people who change their minds at any point being ferried, including during the ceremony, right? In general, they can help protect. Okay, but these guardians, in general, they can help protect cultivators from disasters and calamities, and ensuring that the propagation of Tao and other Tao affairs can be carried out. So that's protecting the Dharma. Okay. So, one explanation says that it is not just these 8, but includes other celestial departments. I don't know. There's like Lei Bu, Fu Bu, Huo Bu, Feng Bu. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, those are like different classes or groups, departments, in the celestial realms, but the spirit deities. So now these are, so this is talking about like the external guardians, but one explanation or one interpretation is that this is also about our 8 internal guardians. The internal guardians are basically the 8 virtues that we have. Okay, so filial piety, brotherhood, loyalty, trust, propriety, righteousness, integrity, and the sense of shame. Okay, so if we cultivate these 8 virtues, then we already have some, you could say, a built-in protection, right? These are our 8 guardian protectors. Okay, so obviously, a person of virtue, let's say they've nurtured all these virtues, then yeah, you could say that they get this protection. Now, whether it's, we're for us, we're talking about forms to say, whether it's an external deity or someone who's protecting us, or the fact that we have these virtues that protects us, it really doesn't matter. It's just that there is protection there. Okay. So the 4 Mahasattvas, right? The great Bodhisattvas are Guanyin, Bodhisattva, Manjushri, okay, Siddhigarbha, and Samantabhadra. Right, so Guanyin, of course, most people are probably familiar with that. With Guanyin represents mercy, okay, or you say compassion. Manjushri, Bodhisattva represents wisdom, the innate wisdom, right, the marvelous wisdom. And then Siddhigarbha Bodhisattva represents having a great pitying vow, right, because he is so pitiful and pitying. He pities all the souls in the underworld. And so, he makes that great vow to stay in the underworld to try to guide them to change their ways. Okay. And then Samantabhadra Bodhisattva represents the kind of the carrying out or the execution of the vows. Okay. So these great Bodhisattvas are also helping Maitreya fulfill his mission during this Vajra, right? Okay. All right. So the next line says Jingling 36 Yuan Jiang. and then 500观景随根. Okay, so, 精灵, oh, sorry, I didn't put the, but, basically, that's basically to like, command or yeah, ling is like command, and then, so jing is like tightly command. All right, so, but then, and then 36, well, that's 36, and then yuan is personnel, and then jiang is like generals, or, yeah. So this is referring to, well, again, these are referring to like deities, okay. And then 500灵官, okay, 500 is 500, 灵官is, literally means like spirit officials, or spirit ministers, whatever. And then, 景随根, they follow closely, okay. So, but these are referring to, these things, okay. So, you can say that these are probably the warrior class, of the celestial beings or divine beings. They are under Maitreya Buddha's command. Okay, so they can help to subdue the evil forces and help ensure the general safety of Tao affairs and propagation and sincere cultivators, right? Okay, there's also an interpretation that for in terms of internal, that's obviously that's kind of an external, and then internally the three can refer to the three aspects as one. So we have our essence, right? The true essence, you can say the true nature, the mind, and then the body. Okay, so, but that, basically the three are one, 3 in 1. Okay, it's the one truth or principle. The 6 refers to the 6 roots or the portals. Okay, so our senses, sense portals, 5 plus the mind, that they do not become defiled in this world. Okay, so if we can combine the 3 aspects into one, to be one with heaven. Okay, so if we can combine the 3, generally we kind of, people mostly, that's why we have to get to know our true nature, our Buddha nature. Right? If we don't know our true nature, our Buddha nature, then we leave that out, and we're only doing the mind and the body, and that's, we're focused on that, which is, what most, people do. Okay, so, but we have to combine all 3, and then that's like being one with heaven. Okay, so, and then we let our true self, our true nature, true self, be our master. Then we can vanquish any desires and temptations from the 6 portals and transform the 6 portals into the, 36 元将. Okay, so those 36 generals, I guess. All right. Okay, so furthermore, internally, we also have 5 sense organs, right? The part of the 6 portals. They're subject to temptation and incursion by evil. If we can relinquish desires and attachments and not fall for temptations, then we can vanquish the evil and transform the 5 sense organs into the 500灵官. Okay, so this, if you want to, there's that other interpretation of this line of pointing to our internally, what it means internally. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's go to the next. Okay. So the next line, 福助弥勒成大道, right? 保佑伤儿的安宁. All right. So 福助 means to support or assist. 弥勒, of course, Maitreya. 成 is to complete or attain. 大道 is the great Tao. So basically, if you combine these, it's like to attain great Tao. In other words, achieve, fulfill his mission, fulfill his vows, all that. Okay. 保佑 is to ensure or guarantee. 伤儿 is like, we say child of, the shang is like village or hometown. So, but our true home is heaven. Okay, so we're all like children of heaven. Okay, is child, and then de is to obtain, and then anning is kind of peace and tranquility. All right, so all the divine and celestial beings, they follow Maitreya's orders to assist in the universal salvation of 3 realms. Okay, so now Maitreya Buddha, he will also preside over the Longhua assembly at the end of, sometime later on. It's basically after the new world has been established, if you will. The new world is after the final calamity, the final catastrophe. Okay, we'll get to that later. And so, but at this Longhua assembly, right, the Maitreya Buddha will confer the peerage, the rank, based on our achievements and virtues and merits. Right, those who have not received the Tao, or have received the Tao but have not cultivated, propagated Tao, or helped in Tao affairs, they won't be at this Longhua assemblies. In fact, probably at that point, the only people who are there probably are those who already received the Tao. So definitely people who have not received the Tao, they won't even be around. Okay, so the implication is that if we are unable to attain a title, a rank or a lotus platform, then we still must reincarnate at a later time. Right? Holy Teacher said that he can guarantee us at most 10,800 years that we can stay in heaven. Now, but that depends on our virtues and merits. Right? We may have to reincarnate before that time is up, and also, when we go back, like I said, we said earlier that it's possible that we may not enter into the inner gate of heaven. That if we're on the outside, then we are still having to cultivate, to learn and to cultivate. Okay. So, another thing to note, time is relative, right? So time in heaven is shorter than it is here. Okay. So when we say 10,800 years, this is like human time that we're talking about, human years. It may only be 100 years in heaven, really. So to cultivate in heaven is very difficult. Aside, from the fact that we don't have a physical body, that's why we must cultivate and practice now while we still can, in having this body, right? Because there's the story of this temple host that Holy Teacher kind of took his soul to heaven to see what it's like, and he saw that there are these people. They're practicing, like, for example, the proprieties, like how to bow, things like that. And he's seen that they're having a very difficult time. And it's taking them years, to be able to do that. I mean, for us here, we just practice it, we can do it in, a few minutes, basically an hour at most to know how to do it properly. But it takes them years in heaven. So don't think that we have a lot of time in heaven. I mean, that's most of our time is going to be, if we don't cultivate well here, we're going to waste our time up there trying to cultivate, and in the end, we may not even succeed, and we'll have to come back down. Okay, so we also have hundreds or thousands of lifetimes of karmic debts to repay. Right? People who do not cultivate will be worse off because they do not have enough virtue and merits to pay off their karmic debts. So they will meet with a greater number and severity of difficulties and calamities. If we cultivate well and perform many merits, right, we still encounter some difficulties and calamities, but they will not be as severe because as a sincere cultivator, the divine and celestial beings will protect us. And, Holy Teacher is also negotiating, say, if these karmic debt collectors are willing to accept merit, then he can pass along the merits that we've accumulated to them. And then they will kind of let us go, so to speak, and not cause us much suffering or harm. Okay. So as a sincere cultivator, then we will have more peace of mind to be able to cultivate and fulfill our vows, right? So that's that last part, where we kind of be more tranquil, more peaceful, basically in our mind that we can be able to do what we need to do, without having to worry too much about, the karma, right? So, but if we are not true cultivators, but are lucky enough or are lucky to have divine and celestial beings help us in times of disaster, then we must requite or pay back our debt of gratitude by doing more to fairy sentient beings, right? So those who might, maybe even though they're not really cultivating much, but they got lucky, you can say that maybe the Buddhas are helping them, but but they really need to wake up and really, be grateful and be repentant and really do more to really cultivate, because this is only a limited, they can only expect that so-called good fortune, basically, or the blessing to it won't last. Okay, so unless they really have to continue to cultivate. All right. So okay, so this is basically, that completes this section here. These seven lines here. This is basically the section on heaven support of the White Era mission, right? Okay, so so there's one explanation that I was listening to, that of this whole, basically of the whole sutra, and then he kind of talked about, like, there were three. There are actually many. Let's see, the Mila. Where's the? Okay, So down here, for example, right, we have this word Mila, right, Maitreya. Actually, the Maitreya, the word Maitreya appears more than 3 times, but this person is saying that, I think this is actually a transmitting master in some other group, but you're saying that, this sutra, it's kind of, he divided into like 3 sections of saying, to correspond with the 3 appearances of Maitreya, okay, in this White Era, so this, okay, but anyways, well, in the next section, though, I will use the same, right, so this section here, you can say is more specific about when Maitreya appears for the 3rd time, right, the 3 crowings of the golden rooster, okay, so, because these kind of relate to basically the the final calamity, and that is when Maitreya will appear again. All right. Okay. So in this section, this right. So that final calamity or catastrophe, it's the 81st, right? Because there's supposed to be like 81 calamities during the White Era. And that is the gangfeng, or that super powerful, the winds, the 4 corners, the winds from the 4 corners, right, that carry fire. Okay, so we know this, basically would be caused by, like, nuclear explosion, for example. Okay. Now, in Buddhism, they say that Maitreya will not appear until some ridiculous number, like 5.6 billion years from now. Okay, so, but I know that's kind of a, that doesn't seem right. Okay, so, but actually, Maitreya will appear during this White Era to save cultivators from suffering at the time of the final calamity. Right, during the Dharma ending age, which is right now this White Era, there are 4 categories of people. Right, Buddhism uses 4 categories of horses as a metaphor. The first category is a horse that comes when the owner calls for it and is very cooperative and has a sense of knowing, what the owner wants it to do. Okay, so, you call the horse and you kind of, and you can ride the horse and the horse will kind of know exactly what you want to do. Like go fast, you want to turn or whatever. Okay, so, and then the second category horse is one that requires a little bit more, coaxing. Okay, some more encouragement, like, you pat it on its rear to get it going. The third category is a horse that requires stronger encouragement, like, maybe digging in the spurs into the sides, okay? And then so the second and third require some kind of additional action by the owner for the horse to act or cooperate, right? And then the fourth category of horse is so stubborn that no matter how it is being hit, it just won't move, all right? So, looking at people, in this White Era, we have the first category people. They're like those holy soldiers that were talked about earlier. And, basically, as soon as they received the Tao, they kind of knew what they needed to do, and they dedicated themselves to the mission. And so early on, in the White Era, there were a lot of these, okay? But today, basically, it's almost, you can't really find any of them today, okay? Now, there are also today, very few kind of in the second category. Now, most people still require a lot of encouragement. Okay, so we encounter a lot, like maybe in the third category, where it takes a lot of effort to convince and motivate them of the Tao, of the truth, to receive the Tao, and even then, they don't act on their own to cultivate or propagate the Tao. So they're like very passive. They're like rocks, so they're sitting there and they don't do anything unless you, kind of push them and force them. But, okay, but then, the vast majority of people though are in that last category where they're kind of stuck in their way of desires and attachments to the material world. And obviously they don't receive the Tao. They refuse to, believe, accept this truth. And so, yeah, that's the vast majority of people. Okay. Okay. So, let's continue with, we'll talk about the first line. This may be, well, okay, we'll see. Okay. So, 北方真武为将帅，青脸弘法显神通. Okay. So, 北方, okay, actually, this kind of goes together, these first four. 北方真武, okay, so that refers to this North Star, or the Northern Deity, okay, which is actually, the title is like 北方真武大帝, or 北极玄天大帝, okay, so there's some deity that's, associated with the North Star, or you can say Polaris, or, yeah. And then Wei, okay, is for or by, okay, 将帅, yeah, you can say it's like general or marshal, you marshal he's like the marshal, if you will, the general who's kind of in charge of this. Okay, so they have a particular mission too, or duty. And 青脸弘法, you can say 青脸弘法. It's literally it's green face, red hair. But you could say it's very, characterizing as being very ferocious or very awesome. Okay, so, and then 显 is to reveal. And then 神通 is special powers. Okay, so this deity, this North Star deity, has great powers that he will use, during this time. Okay, so basically, okay, so North also, you can say, why is it the North? North represents winter, or the coming of winter and the harvest, right? And they say, things start in the East, right? So like culture or civilization starts in the East, and then it flourishes in the West, it goes to the West, and then the decline starts in the South, and then it ends in the North. Okay, so that's kind of the cycle, this natural cycle, right? So, yeah, I mean, you could say that civilization or culture started in the East, or, some of the Chinese, they'll say China, but, and then, after that, it kind of went to the West, where the West civilizations kind of developed maybe a little bit later. And then there's also, the West then started colonizing, you can say, the South, right? If you look at the world history, you'll see that a lot of the powers, or you can say the main civilizations, they were kind of mostly in the North to begin with. And then they kind of went to the South to colonize the you can say the nations, the lands of the South, in the Southern Hemisphere. And then so, okay, and then, but then, kind of within the past few hundred years, okay, so the colonialization period ended, right? And then so a lot of them gained their freedom or independence. And then now we're in the North, which is primarily, you can say, like the U.S., Europe, Russia. Okay, so that they're like the northern the powerful countries in the North. And you can see that, within the last century or so, they've been powerful. But so during this final phase, basically, looks like perhaps China, we're seeing this happening, right? China's rising up again. And, there's going to be also, of course, a lot of major calamities and disasters, but that are happening around the world that will bring down the decline of the northern powers too. Okay, so But anyways, during this period, right, this North Star deity, right, along with other powerful deities, will demonstrate their power by bringing about these calamities and disasters. Now, so if we see what's happening in the world today, besides the wars and other human conflicts, the warming of the planet is also caused, or at least accelerated, by human activity, right? And this is causing climate change disasters. Although, we may be in a period of natural decline, like in the fall and winter seasons, humans have accelerated the process. So we cultivators are in a race to save the people who can be saved from the coming calamities and disasters. Now, some people think that, we still have thousands of years before the final catastrophe, but that seems unlikely. Okay. As we are seeing, basically, we've had, for the past roughly 100 years, less. It would be less, probably. It's been pretty good until now that we had this pandemic. But this is kind of, it's kind of a warning shot, if you will. And it's not really the big kahuna. The big thing hasn't happened yet. Okay, but it's coming. And each time, I don't know whether it's every year or whatever, some big thing's going to happen. Okay, so first of all, we are near the end, also the end of the mandate for the propagation of the Tao. Okay, so that, that's why I don't believe that, some people say that, that day, the day of reckoning with the final calamity, is far off, because, the mandate for the propagation of Tao is, we're near the end of that already. Okay, so once the mandate ends, basically we're just left with religious teachings and practice, right? There's no more, people can't propagate the Tao. And what we're practicing then is essentially, it's like religious practice. It's the same as what religions have today. Now, then there are also the vast majority of people in the fourth category, right, who are stubborn and refuse to change their ways, right? So collectively, the bad karma in the world continues to accumulate, right? In order to have the paradise on earth, or the kingdom of heaven on earth, as vowed by Maitreya and also spoken of in other scriptures, right, there must be a great cleansing of the evil from the world, which includes, unfortunately, the fourth category of people, the vast majority of people. They're going to be swept away in the great calamities. Another interpretation says that, this pointing internally, that we have to cultivate to dispel the evil that's within, right? Even though, right, there's external evil, but it is really the internal evil that attracts the external evil, okay? So it's like, birds of a feather, they flock together, right? So like attracts like, right? So it also says that when we return to heaven, we must pass through the 9 checkpoints where they check our qualifications at each gate, right? If we're not qualified to pass through, then we will be relegated to the outer court where we must cultivate. Okay, so that's what I mentioned before. Okay, so it's important that, we have to definitely have to cultivate. There's, we say, oh, I'm not an evil person, but internally, if this is not, okay, we use this term evil, but it's basically, like 3 poisons, for example, greed, anger or rage, and delusion or attachments, things like that. These are all quote unquote evil. Okay, so we have to get rid of these things. Our bad habits, vices, right? All these things, anything that, and also anything else that's goes against our conscience. Okay. Goes against the principles of the Tao, principles of, what's proper in human relationships, all these things. So we have to kind of rectify ourselves. All right. If we expect to really expect to, survive, for one, these calamities, and then, when we go back to heaven, to be able to go through those, be able to pass those 9 checkpoints where they, to see if we're actually qualified to actually get into the inner court of heaven. So, okay, so because I guess that's all we're going to be able to do today. Time's up here. All right. Yeah, are there any questions?
Lecture time.
Yes. All right, transmitter.
One point I want to make. The more we cultivate, the more we propagate the Tao, the better situation we have with marriage, with virtues. They will affect the ranks of our ancestors. So, but the more we do, the better we are, and they also benefit. But once we withdraw or set back, we say we don't want to cultivate, or we relax, their rank will drop. So we affect them a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, so, right, remember we said that the 3 levels of our ancestors, depending on what level kind of, how much we've progressed in the Tao. If we at any point we say, oh, I give up, and stop cultivating, then they're going to drop down too. So, that's, we have to kind of do this not just for ourselves, but it's also for them as well. We got to honor our ancestors, so we should not be selfish. All right. Okay. Anything else? Okay. If I had said anything wrong or not satisfactorily, I ask the Buddhas and also Maitreya Buddha for forgiveness, and also the corrections from transmitters and lectures. Thank you.